But
That's
your
exactly what I'm
shirts
gonna
are
do.
so small, they won't fit over your giant dome.
I have the smallest head in the world. Are you kidding me? Look at
You
this
have the
thing.
smallest arms in the world, but you're gonna put that thing sideways over that schnoz or what?
I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I might have to cut a nose
You're
hole in
gonna,
mine.
I won't hold you down.
You don't have a bandana?
No, I'm not a bank robber, Jamie. I don't have bandanas. Good thing I have so many of these extra Boujang goaltending shirts.
Are you kidding me? Are you cutting up a Boujang goaltending shirt?
No.
You paid $65 for that shirt. So we have a guest today, Dusty Imoo, and just some. I don't know if we'll get into this when we have Dusty on, but in 2011-12, Jamie got traded out of Powell River, and Dusty's kid Jonah Imoo replaced him. And I was just going through the numbers here on how much of a massive upgrade Jonah was over Jamie when he played in the BCHL. So Jamie gets dished because he's just a bad teammate. They bring in Jonah, and Jonah, listen to these numbers, Albo. 8 games played, GAA of 0.94, and a save percentage of 95. You're looking up your numbers now, aren't you, Jamie?
No, I'm just replying to Elbow.
You can't get much better numbers than that. Is this is him? This is his numbers in Powell River?
Yeah, so Jamie gets dished to the OJ, a much weaker league, because he wasn't playing well. They bring in Jonah to replace him, and Jonah throws up video game numbers.
Damn, yeah. That's intense. That's like that D3 goalie from France that had those crazy numbers.
Yeah, when you called him a house league goalie?
Well, with numbers like that, you got to think he's playing in a garbage league, but I guess not.
What's this guy? This guy playing house league or MD hockey?
Yeah, that's what I thought, but obviously not.
Hello.
Dusty, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Long time no see. Super excited to have you on.
Oh, cool. No, that's
Yeah, you are just blowing up the internet with your TikToks. They're probably the highlight of my weeks.
all I got going now. Right now.
Well, we'll just get right into it. For the most part, we're a pretty casual podcast. No, we're not here to grill you or anything. It's more of just a conversation between goalie coaches and picking each other's brains and that kind of stuff. We usually don't get too technical, but if we need to, we will.
Okay.
But I think Derek had stated he really wanted to just kick it off, so I'll let you do it, Goosh.
Oh, yeah, I remember what year was it? 2016-17 when you had the opportunity to back up your son Jonah in Ontario.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that when I was following it. I was like, man, that's the dream, because I got a 4-year-old son, and he's starting to get in hockey, and I think he's leaning towards being a goalie. So just having an opportunity to do that is probably like that's like a dream come true.
It was kind of surreal, actually. Now we look back at it, it's a great memory for sure. When it happened, it was just kind of over the top, and trying to manage being my job and just being psyched that I was on the ice with Jonah was pretty cool. But yeah, it was a bit of a nail biter for me just to try to keep things. I thought that I needed to try to keep things all chill, but Jonah seemed all cool with it. It was more me. I just couldn't. I didn't want it to come across like I was playing favorites, or that whole year was kind of a challenge to stay neutral and professional, because Jonah was in our organization, so it was a bit of a challenge. But that day was pretty awesome.
And that was with the LA Kings organization, right?
Yeah.
You guys had a ton of injuries at the NHL level, and that kind of brought everything up.
Yeah, it was crazy how that whole year was a gong show. And then it wasn't long after that, Jonah, and because of the injuries, it was Jonah and Jack Flynn were on the road, and then Jonah tore his hammy, And then I had to back up Jack Flynn in Texas and in San Antonio. we were getting pretty depleted, that's for sure. It was getting pretty bad.
During this time where you're in like backup mode, are you practicing with the guys at all? Or are you just throwing gear on and hoping you don't see ice?
No, I practiced quite a bit in LA. Didn't do it in Winnipeg, but I implemented it in Ontario with the Reign in the American League to go on and kind of give, especially Mike Stuthers tended to play one goalie a lot. So like when I had Peter Budaj, I would give him days off and practice. And then when Jack Campbell played a ton, I did the same with CB. And by that time, like there were it started with a couple injuries, and Blakey asked if I'd be able to back up in any of these situations. And I said, sure. So they went ahead and bought me all the gear. And from then we kind of just I started practicing, and it actually kind of helped. It helped a lot, actually. They really liked it. The players liked it. The goalies liked it. And it was easy for me to show some things, and it was a lot of fun building rapport as well.
Go ahead. I forgot what I was going to say.
Do you think that helped with your like coaching of the guys that you were kind of playing alongside?
Yeah, well, it definitely helps. Like, it might not have helped so much if I was really sucked, but I kind of got it back a little bit, and especially when it came to things like catching, because I'm still good at catching pucks, and even at the American League level. So it's been a bit of a lost art, and I've learned how to be. At first, it was like I just couldn't believe how kids couldn't catch anymore, but it was hard for me to teach it. But once I got on the ice and started doing it again, and then showing it by actually doing it and myself do it, I learned how to kind of bring back some of the old ways of receiving pucks as opposed to going at pucks. And it really helped a lot. And yeah, I ended up doing it more and more. Actually, last year was the most by far. I practiced probably 30, 40 times.
Wow. Why don't you think that younger goalies these days, or why do they struggle so much with like catching and tracking pucks?
You know what? There's a combination, but I think, and I'm not taking away from goalie schools or goalie coaches or anything like that. But what happens over time is, new ways start to happen. We started doing a lot of tracking, right? So, really focusing on doing this and doing that. But then what tended to happen is we started going this way to the pucks, right? And it became more of a blocking situation. And in combination with the new gear, stuff became harder and more not as easy to catch a puck in general. So on top of going this way in a puck, hard mix, you could just see it kind of disintegrate the ability to catch a puck. And especially, it would not be as bad at the lower levels, in minor hockey and then into junior. But once you hit pro and then the NHL, the pucks are coming so fast at you. It's very difficult to be able to keep that puck in your. It's actually almost by you before, unless you're actually just guessing where it's going to go.
So what kind of cues do you give your guys that are struggling to catch when you get them, just in order to kind of break the habits they have of kind of palming the puck or just trying to block it?
Well, it's a tough thing because now you're essentially trying to tell them to do something totally different. And they're so used to be having hands forward, hands out, and I'm telling them to keep your hands cocked and in close to you and then go like this at pucks. It's hard for them to grasp it. So when I talk about actually doing it, I use guys that are good at catching pucks as examples, which helps, that are more relevant than, say, an old guy like me, like a Tuukka Rask. And you watch some of these guys that are good, their hands aren't out here like this. they're kind of relaxed and cocked and just they're not and they're also not like this. You can see my hand. It's more like a relaxed position with their wrists like this. So that kind of goes against what a lot of guys are teaching. Have your palm facing the puck, the shooter, covering net, and I'm kind of essentially telling you the opposite. But it's easier when you're like this to kind of just let the puck come to you and go like this. And I'm not talking, the big windmills, but you got guys like Fleury and all these guys. When the puck is coming at them, they're not doing this. They're kind of going like this. Maybe not so big, but just not going at the puck so hard,
I love that you made the reference about kind of holding your glove like this and going fingers up. Remember 5-6 years ago, this was the trend. And if anybody does this, just puts their hand up like this, they can feel how much tension goes through your forearm. And the fact that you were talking about relaxed hands or fast hands, that's exactly the same thing that I preach. And I bring up like a guy like Usain Bolt. You watch the fastest man that's ever lived on the planet run 100 meters, and he's loose. Everything is loose and relaxed, and he's just letting his body do the work. And guys that hold their hands way out and have that big cocked wrist, they're putting so much tension through their arms that now they have to contract all those muscles to move to a puck, and they just can't catch up. And that's why you get like that frying pan hand or that blocking style of catching. But like I agree with everything you said, and it's I think perfect for any of the guys listening to this is when your hands are relaxed, your hands are going to be fast.
Yeah, and you know what I tell all the different guys that I've worked with is I'm not saying, okay, this is exactly where I think your hands should be. Like everybody's different on what feels comfortable to them. And I exaggerate and say you can put your hand on, but if it's all rigid, it's going to be very difficult for you to catch a puck. A great example actually is Jamie would know is Ellie when I was in Winnipeg, and he's a great example of someone that he's a great. He's in the finals. He might even win, I think. But he had trouble for a long time catching a puck because he was of the extreme. His hands were as far, like his arms up. So everything was just bam hard, and it's very difficult, very unbelievable. All kinds of pucks. Like he would get his hand there, but he was more of putting hands in place opposed to receiving a puck. And over time, I think Flats was able to get him to pull his hand back a bit, and he's gotten a little bit better at it.
When you first I guess we could go back, but so you were the development goalie coach for Winnipeg for 2 years, I believe. And I was part of the organization there as well, although we didn't, when I was still in college, a lot of rules restricted the amount of time we could work together. But you're credited a lot for Hellebuyck's development when he was with the Ice Caps. When he came out of college, other than like his stance, which was very rigid and hard to fit out, what kind of things did you really emphasize that really helped him get to that next level and really just dominate the NHL?
It's funny. Someone asked me that, and I've myself have kind of changed and evolved along the way. So someone asked me, what were the main things, and I think the two you could ask him, but two of the big things that I remember, things that sunk in for him and were like a light bulb thing that really helped him, was he had a challenge with traffic at the pro level. It really changes when you get up to the American League and then into the NHL. It's like a wall of shit, a wall of, it's just people all over the place. And he would tend to sink back and then drop and block, right? As soon as he couldn't find the puck. So really maintaining his depth and not sinking back. And also, something teach or I don't hear about is I do a lot of stepping off. When pucks go up to the point, guys are so and always being centered to the puck, right? You know, have good angle all the time, center to the puck. Well, what happens though is that guy that's screening you is usually centered to the puck. And so I tell guys like Soupy and everybody to stay to the one side and just wait. Let them be where they think that they should be. And then lots of times those screeners will be shocked that you're not on the proper angle. But for me in the NHL and the American League, it's more important to see the release of the shot. And you can always move into the puck as opposed to being on your angle and trying to find your ways around them all the time, going back and forth and up and down, and just stay off your angle a bit and have a clear view of the release. And we worked on that, and that seemed to help him. And I remember it actually made a big difference for him in his traffic. The other thing was we constantly tried to work on his hands, because I felt if he could, on top of everything else that he did well, catch pucks, he could really become more of a complete goaltender, and we worked on that a ton.
Yeah, Dusty, when you talk about kind of adjusting your angle or being okay with being off angle in order to see the release, do you kind of guide the goalies on which side of the screen to look over, or do you kind of let them decide whatever is right in this situation?
Great question, because there's kind of general not rule. I don't like calling them rules, because then kids or whoever you're teaching will think, okay, I got to do this, because as we all know, hockey is a game of change, and a guy that's in front might not be in the spot where usually he might be. Like if a puck comes from the corner low to high up to the point, I generally say stay on that side. Like if it's coming up my right side, I would stay on the right side of the screener and then try to hold that as long as you can to see the puck. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what happens if it's the puck's in the corner and that screener's like really on down low as well, and then the puck goes low to high and you're automatically screened and you can't see on the right side. So I would automatically step to the left side and get a view. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then if he tried to find you, the screener, I would take you a step even more and just keep seeing the defenseman or whoever has the puck. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's one thing that I struggle with. Guys are asking me, you know, which side of the screen do I stay on? And it's hard to give an exact answer because the game is so fast and everybody else is moving around you. So to me, that's a part where you really have to give responsibility to the goalie to try it out, see what works. Here's a few things that, like you said, that I would do in this situation. But at the end of the day, you got to take ownership of that and try to fight to see the puck.
You know, if you ever, as this season for next season starts or whatever, or watch old clips, if you ever find some stuff with Cal Peterson, he, out of all the goalies, everyone seemed to really like it. Like Soupy really liked it and whatnot, but Cal really, he's unbelievable at doing it as well. He'll be like standing there and the screener won't have a clue that he's way over here, and he just moves right into pucks, and he's excellent at it. And he loved it, and it really, really helped his game, especially when he went up to the NHL.
Yeah. It seems like it would really also hone your projection skills, because as you're kind of off angle and the puck is going to the opposite side that you are, you're kind of going to have to lose the puck a little bit in the screen. So you're also working on the projecting of it as well.
Oh, for sure. But it's my opinion anyways, that it's when you lose sight of the release, if anyone that is a goalie knows, that's the worst feeling in the world. Yeah. And then we just drop and we just kind of put our hands like this, right?
Yeah.
And it's a sucky feeling. So I choose to teach and encourage goalies to try to find the release more than anything.
I think, I'm glad that you emphasize battling through screens so much with your goalies, because that's the one thing that it's hard to teach in a goalie session to work on screens and work on battles. But as the more levels you go up, the better the guys are in front of the net, the better they are at screening, the better they are at tipping. I think that was the biggest thing I noticed whenever I'd go up from the East Coast to the American League was I can't see anything. Can't see anything. And every time there's a puck shot in the net, someone gets a stick on it. And just to be able to work on that and have those little subtle techniques or the little nuances of being able to find pucks make a really, really big difference for goalies.
Yeah. So, it's a thing to turn a goalie something that's realistic in that sense, because there is so much traffic. You have to generally have the whole line of people out there, and that's tough to simulate when you're just doing a goalie session. But you can teach the stepping off. I do that even with just a one person front is doable. But it like you said, Jamie, when you get up to the game, it's incredible how you can't see anything. It's nuts.
I was going to ask, how would you work on traffic and goalie sessions? You kind of, because it is hard. It's hard to get guys to come out and say, okay, I need you to stand in front of the net unless you got a 13, 14 forward that needs to get in the lineup and you want to work on skills of tipping pucks.
It's really tough, actually, to create something that's real. You know what I mean? There's, Mitch Korn has all kinds of devices and different, screens or different walls that he puts in front and stuff like that. But to have something that actually can move and kind of mess with you, and it's tough to simulate that. You have to, plead with players to do it. But you can also tell the D-man, whoever's shooting, you don't need to rip pucks, just float things in, just so they can figure out how to stay away from the screen and step off. I do it. I'll actually stand in front sometimes, as long as the guys are just wristing pucks and whatnot. But one guy is doable, but it's nice to have a second guy come across up in the slot area. If I do that when we actually have the players, we'll have a D-man, a guy more in the middle of the slot, and he can skate back and forth, and then the D-man will just shoot wristers.
So you spent the last season in the KHL, and a crazy year with the virus and everything. But before we get into that, I was curious, did you have to change anything with your coaching style for adjusting for guys in the KHL, different league, coming from the AHL, NHL, bigger ice, just different mentalities? I was wondering if you had to adjust the way you coach.
You know what? No, I didn't. I think but by the time I was making this decision to leave the NHL, I felt pretty comfortable in my own skin and how I was, the type of person, coach I was. And also I played, a lot of years over in Europe. So I was not really going over there thinking, oh no, I got to change things. If anything, I'm big on athleticism and skating, right? I like to work on holding your feet and reading plays first before dropping, and that helps in that type of game where they're dusting things off and faking and passing and not shooting. So holding your feet is big over there. And I think the bigger ice surfaces can be overstated a little bit, like how different it is. I think as long as you know where you are in the net, I think it's just the time of how long things take is different, but the angle shouldn't make much of a difference. So I just kind of thought, I'll teach the same. If there's issues and we got the guys want to discuss them, we'll do that. And right away, I had Jeremy Smith and Simone Hrubeck. They both had no problem with that. Jeremy was more concerned because obviously he's from North America, but I kind of try to douse that flame a little bit in the worry, and he managed fine, and we just worked a lot on him keeping his feet.
You had some time with Team Japan in the Nagano Olympics.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, no, the whole reason why I left North America was because Dave King asked me to go over to play in the league and try to get my citizenship and play in Nagano in '98. So I think Dave found 11 guys. 6 of us ended up getting our citizenships and playing in Nagano. And I kind of foresaw doing that and then coming back and then starting my career back home. But I got married at just turned 21. And by the time I was 23, I had 3 kids and then had a 4th over in Japan. So I had like a huge family, and the money was really good over there, like really good. So I had to make a decision, and I ended up staying there 12 years.
Yeah.
So I never came back.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned briefly that kind of comparing your experience with Team Japan to what the Chinese are going through for 2022.
Right.
What kind of unique pressures did you feel being an underdog, host city, a Canadian born? You're a Canadian born, correct?
Yep.
Canadian born, playing on a foreign country. Like, what was going through your mind leading up to the Olympics?
Well, I will say this: the way they did it is Dave got paid well to kind of spearhead the whole movement and turning that program into an A pool quality team for the Olympics. Because prior to that, they were B pool. So what we did is that whole year prior to Nagano, I never played in the league. None of us did. We toured, played for 5 months or whatever with the national team. So we played Canada 10 times, played them 5 times in Canada, 5 times in Japan. We were in Europe. We would do 30-day stints in a row and just play Swiss, we'd be in France, we'd be in Germany, we'd play in club teams, national teams. We did that for 5 months. So by the time the Nagano actually came to be, we were kind of just so immersed in the program that we weren't like as nervous about, showing well, or because we'd taken our lumps and we'd actually started to become a pretty good team. We were, I think, 500 with Canada, which at the time they were still the American leaguers, East Coast leaguers, and Gretzky and the guys didn't come till Nagano. But still, we were playing those guys. Had a bench brawl against them, and just really started to develop this unity. So to answer your question, by the time Nagano showed up, we were pretty focused on just kind of playing. I will say this: once it actually started, it was like a sprint. Like it happened so fast. It was kind of crazy, but we weren't so nervous about, are we going to show well or whatever, but because we played so many games by that time.
So what I'm curious about is the dynamic in that dressing room between the experienced North American guys and maybe the less experienced native Japanese guys who haven't really had the exposure to high level hockey that you guys have had. So are they looking to you for like guidance and leadership? Like, what's that dynamic like in such in a room like that?
The group of guys that we had are the elite of the Japanese players.
Right.
So they do have a bit of confidence of their own, especially as the year progressed and we started winning games against the Swiss teams and whatnot. And but also credit to Dave and a lot of the guys over there that he brought over Canadian coaches. Like my coach was Willie Desjardins on my club team, and Billy Moores was over there. Then he also brought all the imports he brought were like Tom Curvers and all NHL guys. So the league really ramped up its level. So all these Japanese guys were playing with NHL guys on each of their club teams the 3 years prior us even assembling our national team and touring. So by the time we all got together, these guys, they were already talented hockey players, but they really, that 5 months, learned how to become we implemented that being a tight unit and sticking together, and we had lots of fights and things along the way that helped. But yeah, by the time Nagano rolled around, they maybe looked to us as leaders, but we were a team.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I've always been curious because I've never played at the international level, and especially for countries that really emphasize on winning in athletics. Did you as the players feel any government pressure to perform in the Olympics?
I know the Japanese players did, for sure, because it was well funded and like they put out a lot of the stops to make this successful. But still, we were like going to be playing against high level teams, and so it was a big challenge. I didn't feel it as much. You know what I mean? Being a heritage guy, but I could tell that the Japanese guys felt the pressure. Like all our games were sold out, and it was a lot of attention towards it. So they were feeling a lot of the pressure.
If you had a blank checkbook, you could write as big a number as you want. What would you do to develop hockey to really truly develop it in, say, an Asian market?
Well, the funny thing is, like I said, I was there 12 years, and I saw everything regarding the development and how hockey was and how these guys even became as good as they were, the Japanese guys. I was shocked at how they were able to become that good with the way their minor hockey system is. And then now being over in China the 1 year, I was shocked. The money would definitely go towards the minor hockey, 100%. Because I think if you don't start at the grassroots, you're going to get one or two players here that are just talented athletes that become decent enough hockey players. But to develop consistent hockey players that are good, you need to have a good kids program right from the beginning. And I would market it like the NHL, because that would develop that interest for the kids. Because as kids, we all know growing up, at least for me, one of the big things that made me want to be a hockey player and then a goalie in particular was looking at my idols, right? Seeing these guys and whatnot growing up and wanting to be them. Well, they don't have any of that, right? The NHL was doing that, starting to do that in Japan prior to Nagano, and then just after Nagano, and then by the time I left Japan and my contract was done, it was like kind of the last of the big contracts, and then the imports turned in from NHLers, ex-NHLers to American leaguers to East. Now it's like East Coast League guys, and the money's way down, and they are not putting money into it anymore. But for sure, the minor hockey system is where I would put all the money, and then help bring the NHL over, because that develops the interest, right?
Switching gears back to kind of your role as a goalie coach.
Yeah.
When you were in the developmental, like with the LA Kings and with Winnipeg, what was your role on a day-to-day basis with the guys that were in the minor leagues, whether it was the AHL, the Coast, and then even the guys that were in major junior or in college? How much did you see those guys?
It was a fun, challenging thing because they really gave, both Winnipeg and And even by the time I got to LA, like I had full control of the whole schedule. So I got to decide exactly where I needed to. And I usually, I'm a little bit aloof, loose, if you will, as far as how I did things. But I really like to leave it open because I like to feel on who needs more help at certain times. So depending, like say, if I remember when Jamie was having a tough time because he wasn't getting minutes, and he's left kind of on his own. I can't work with him, but I felt the need that I needed to go, so I would travel to see him, and then just talk with him, even if he wasn't playing. And then so I would set up my schedule as such, bounce different places, but I always try to do a lot this much time to the guys in the American League. But I also felt, if the guys in the American League were rolling really good, I let them put their big boy pants on and deal with shit, because I believe that you need to be able to be strong enough to work through your game on your own. So I would leave the guys there and then go see someone in the coast or whatever if I felt they needed help. And yeah, the management of all that is kind of just all left up to me.
Did you feel pressure from the organization if they invested a high draft pick in a goalie? Was there a little bit more pressure that we need this guy to pan out because he was billed as a second or third round pick, as opposed to guys kind of whether they were free agent signings that were coming up or they were picked later on in the draft?
You know what? I say both Winnipeg and especially LA never said boo to me. They were, always keeping up with how things were and how, who I thought was doing this or doing that. But they both were really good at showing confidence and faith, and maybe because of the results of the goalies, I don't know. But even from the beginning, before I had results in Winnipeg, like when I first started in the NHL, they really just were really supportive of. I never felt that pressure, to tell you the truth, which was nice, because I can imagine some places,
And the reason I ask is we earlier on in some of our podcasts, we had a guy from the OHL who has kind of a big name goalie that it was taken really high in the OHL draft. And I asked him about the pressure of developing a guy who was the first goalie taken, who's projected to possibly be the first goalie in the NHL draft. And he's like, I feel the pressure. He's like, it might be a little bit self-imposed pressure,
right,
rather than the association, but he's like, I definitely feel the type of pressure where I got to kind of get this guy to where he's projected to go. And I was curious if that was kind of at the higher levels kind of put on you also.
Not there was no one calling me, giving me, constantly texting me or emailing me or anything like that. So I didn't feel it. And like you said, lots of coaches could probably do that to themselves. But my personality does it would never really even enter my mind, really, because all I can do is just try to help them be the best they can be, and then I look back at these results and I'm really happy. But I guess if same as a player, if we become coaches that are focused on results first, and watching their stats and seeing how they're doing, we become a victim of the same thing that I try to preach, and not focus on results and just have fun with the process. And I do that the same. What I preach to the guys, I do the same with myself. So I never felt it.
I found a lot of organizations really, they don't emphasize developing the guys as much when they're in the East Coast. It's more of let them play and then we'll work on them when they get to the American League. So what was your kind of mindset in dealing with guys, that would get sent to the coast to, go and develop, like they always say? Like, how would you kind of work with their confidence, because it hurts a lot sometimes to get set down, and then sometimes you feel like you're never going to get back up. So like, especially for the guys in LA, because you've had so much success bringing guys that played in the coast and make their way to the NHL. Like, what's kind of your angle in terms of their mental part, and then I guess the actual gameplay with them?
Well, I would try to go, but and we would try to make sure we didn't leave someone there the whole time. We bring them to me, maybe back up in the American League for a bit, or be a third goalie and get some practice time with the team in the American League with me, and as opposed to all the time me just going down there, because you do feel a little bit removed from the organization. It's just a natural feeling when you're down in the coast, right? I try to be very aware that we're not leaving them too long and playing mind games with themselves like they feel they're left alone. But there is an element that we do encourage them to figure themselves out and deal with some of that stuff. As long as I'm in communication with them and helping them work through it, it's sometimes good for them to try to figure some of the things out. I'm big on the talks about the East Coast League, because if you don't have some of these talks with the kids, it can get pretty ugly down there. Well, Jim, you played there quite a bit, and on any given night, it can be a total shit show. Like, so, like, you can lose your game if you don't realize the purpose. You know what I mean? You can still develop down there, even with good games, bad games, but you got to really have the right mindset. It can really go south fast down there if you have a few bad games, because like the teams that are from one night to the next, you can have a cup winning type team to a team literally with one line and 2D. It's crazy. But if you have a goalie coach or someone to kind of work you through that, it can still be a great league to help develop. But you got to be you don't have to be there all the time, but you have to be hands-on for sure.
We've actually had this kind of debate on the pod before, and it's one thing that I really emphasize, and I personally believe that the NHL teams should have some sort of full-time guy in the East Coast working alongside the development goalie coach. I'm just curious to know, what is your opinion on that? Like, do you like it the way it is, or do you think that there needs to be more coaching for those guys that are on deals playing in the East Coast?
I think it'd be great to have a coach in every team in the organization, for sure. I think, especially the way we did things in LA, we would kind of, if we did have another guy down there, we would kind of sort of, everybody's on the same kind of page. We're all different coaches. Billy and I were totally different coaches, but we kind of had the same goal in mind and the same type of goalies. Like, and I don't mean you had to be a Jonathan Quick, but we just like guys that were like to be athletic and whatnot and just play. But if we had a guy down there, that would have been great. But I will say this: the NHL hasn't come around to that yet. Kind of strange when you think about it. It's a big topic for goalie discussion. Done it with many other podcasts like In Goal and stuff, that everybody says that goalie is the most important position in the game, and but there's so many things that are archaic and backwards. You know what I mean? That they don't put as much money-wise into the development. It's changing for sure. Like my role, when I first went to Winnipeg, there weren't a lot of guys like me doing that whole thing, like being involved with everything and all the different, and I was the Jets development coach. I wasn't the St. John's, I didn't live there. I was everywhere, right? there weren't a lot of teams yet doing that, and now it's changed over the years. But it would be great to have a whole, like a goalie director, a head goalie guy, a development guy, and then someone that the development guy could have. Because I would tell you this, I mentioned this, I think, in my second year or so in LA, that it would be nice if I could have, even regarding the scouting, for example, I would have to allot time. The scouting department would give me the top 7 guys that they kind of had on their list. And I would have to find time to go see all these guys and then give them my opinions on all these guys, right? It'd be nice to have someone like the East Coast guy. Let him go do that, and I can correlate and kind of, but they haven't quite come around to that yet.
No, that's why I was curious on your opinion, because, like, for me, when I played, I felt, when I was with the Jets, I felt like I was on an island down there, and it was a bummer because the communication wasn't as good as I would have hoped. And then when I went to an organization, the East Coast, that had a guy, it was the exact opposite, where there was no, the American League guy never came at all because it wasn't in the budget. So I'm a bit, like, personally, I'm a big believer that the NHL needs to treat the AHL and East Coast as like the way baseball does it with Major League AAA, AA. But I was curious from your perspective whether you would prefer more hands-on or if you would have liked to have brought someone in. But no, that was a really, really good answer.
Yeah, I think the best thing would be to have a third guy, because then it wouldn't be spreading the development guy too thin. Because I will say this, it was a challenge every year to make sure that everybody was being taken care of, I felt, properly.
You enjoy the development role? Are you looking for an NHL head guy job? Something in Europe? Because you said you're not going back to Koeman. So, like, what do you want to do next?
It'd be tough to go. I love developing, and I've said this from the beginning. When I was in LA, people ask me all the time, because it was having more and more success, that, oh, well, so I automatically should be wanting a head job. And to be, and this is the honest to God truth, I give a shit either way about that I'm the head guy in the NHL flying the planes. I love the development role. I'm good at it. I love it. I believe I could do the same for the NHL guys and help, but the money's not the same. When I got offered the job in the K, it's just not even close, right? And I'm not all about the money, but I do have. I got to. When it's that much of a discrepancy, I'm moving forward in my life in general. So, and it was a great, experience and whatnot. So coming back, and now that I'm kind of free agent, I would love to try to explore the head role and see if I could implement my way of being to help a superstar. And maintain my salary level that I want to try to keep, right? Would I go back to development role? Of course, but the money now, especially with COVID, it's going to be interesting moving forward to see what we end up with, once jobs start opening up again, and what they're going to be paying. It'll be interesting to see what happens, for sure.
Say the first and easiest cut to make is probably to the goalie coaching industry, in terms of like at all levels, junior all the way up. But I think, like me and Jamie talked about this, like the developmental job, I think is like the coup de grace jobs as goalie coaching. You get to put your stamp on a guy over a kind of a longer developmental curve of the guy coming on an ELC. You got 3 kind of years to kind of do some stuff with them. Where sometimes in junior you might have 1 year or 2 years, and then the guy leaves or he gets traded. But a lot of guys on ELCs are there for 3, maybe 4 years. Where as a goalie coach like you talked with some of the guys that you worked with, like Jack Campbell, who's now in Toronto, and Hellebuck. Like you're seeing things that you worked on with Connor Hellebuck when he was in St. John's that he's doing now, and we talked about this before you got on. Like he's going to win a Vezina Trophy this year. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, hey man, as far as when you ask that question, the development job for me is a rush. It's the best feeling. And the way I do things, and other people may disagree, but I've become really close friends with all of them. And to this day, I'd do anything for any one of those guys, regardless of teams or wherever they go. And every time I see someone do something great or have some success, nobody knows. I don't get, well, with Soupy, I got quite a bit of press or whatever, but like, it's just a rush. And it's a great feeling to know that I had a little in helping him or Helly or Cal Peterson or Peter Budai or whoever in making their lives a little bit better and achieving dreams and whatnot. And to know that you had an effect like that, whereas you might not have that in a head roll. These guys make freaking $10 million, and are you really having that much on what they do? I don't know.
Is it Jack Campbell that wore your number? Somebody in the AHL All-Star game?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I remember that.
He didn't tell me. He was surprised.
That's got to be a pretty good feeling.
He was at the game in the dressing room, and he said, "I got a surprise for you, but I can't tell you right now." And I was like, "What?" And then he texted me. He goes, "Here it is." And then he took a picture and sent it to me, and he was in the jersey on the way out the ice. It was so cool. It was actually still gives me chills.
That's just a credit to your ability to develop relationships with your guys. And that's what, like, I'm kind of trying to teach these guys how to not how to coach. They know how to coach, but we bounce ideas off each other. And the biggest thing coming back is, like, if you want to be a good goalie coach, you got to be able to communicate with your athlete. And you got guys wearing your number in the All-Star games. That's pretty good reflection on you as a guy who's able to develop and build relationships.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. You know, it's funny that it's a bit of a debate, you know, with certain people and how coaches, especially once you get to the NHL and that level, the pressures of maintaining that respect and professionalism. And I always took heat for it. Always. And I remember
from who? Like head coaches, GMs? Who's giving you heat for that?
I won't mention names, but when my first NHL job, I remember specifically someone saying, "I don't care if they like you, they need to respect you." And that always stuck with me, and not in a good way. I was like, you know, I'm gonna be me because it works, and if they don't like it, and I did that. I had the same philosophy when I went to LA. And my methods, you know, sometimes, you know, there's that line, people, should you be friends? Should you need to be friends? And I couldn't be bothered with worrying about it. You know, if they don't like it, they don't like it. But I have success doing it the way I do it. And so I just keep doing it this way. And I hope I encourage all kinds of coaches. That's the way, I honestly believe it's the way to. People are human beings, and they deserve to be treated like that and not like pieces of meat. I know I didn't like that feeling when I was playing the game. And you'd be surprised. It's amazing how much people jump on the board you're training when they like you and trust you, and what they'll do for you. It's amazing what they'll do.
I had a similar experience with a head coach in my first year. coaching junior hockey, because my approach was similar to what you're saying. If I want these guys to like think of me as, I don't know if I want to say like they're equal, but I didn't want to make it seem like I'm like dictating to them what they should be doing and how they should be playing. Because I see my role as the goalie coach is not to tell you how to play. It's to help you find your way so that you can play your best game. And
Right.
you only do that through like a relationship of mutual respect. You don't do that through like commanding respect. You know, you have to respect me and do what I say because
Right.
I'm the coach.
Right. Hey, this is just me, and but that's exactly how I feel. I remember back when I first started, the social media. It's kind of like a taboo for in the NHL and coaches and stuff. You rarely see them. If anything, you get people telling you get off it. Don't comment on this, do that, or whatever. Well, I'm not like that. I use it as a connector because this is the guys coming up. This is their reality. This is part of their lives and how they live their lives is through social media.
Right.
And some old stiff that doesn't even know how to use it. There's a gap, and as long as I'm not posting shit about me partying or drinking, I'm using it in a positive way. It helped build connection, and I took heat for it at the beginning, quite a bit of heat. And then when I went to LA, Billy, he bugged me all the time about it, but he never deterred me because he knew my style and let me just do my thing. And even they make fun of me, about my Insta or whatever. And now more recently with the whole TikTok thing. Mm-hmm. But all the goalies and all my people that I coach and stuff, there's connection there. They comment, we were back and forth. Players add me and stuff, and I don't abuse it in the sense like I don't go partying with them or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we're genuine friends through that, and I use it for sure.
I am a little bummed out that you weren't in the organization at the same time where I was out of college, and that's disappointment. Before we go, I'm curious, what were your honest thoughts about me as a goalie when you had me, I guess, in my first 2 years of college where I wasn't playing at all? I'm just curious. And you can be I need to be brutally honest with you.
Honest? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I already knew from before, right? So but I didn't know your whole dynamic. I think that you were way too much up here, hard on every, like very, I'm looked at, I'm not playing, I'm not doing this. You're a bit out of sorts as far as this whole thing talk about and just focusing on being you and playing, even if it was just practicing. I knew that if you didn't get past that, it was a tough road for you. And by the hockey, how hockey works, and like you said, you play great, you don't get called up. You play like crap, you get called up. It's the weirdest thing. Sometimes they just got to click, and people left. You're in, boom, you play great. You're in, oh, great season. You know what I mean? Like things just went boom, turn around. Like as far as a goalie was concerned, and watching you play, when I did go see you play, really impressed with your similar to Helly as far as getting square to puck. You're very good at that. Knowing where to be. I just always wanted to be able to work with you and just work on getting you a little more athletic,
That's Derek's smiling. That's what he worked 13 years on, trying to get me more athletic.
Trying to lighten those feet up for 28 years of my life.
They were heavy feet, that's for sure. But
They got better every year, though.
They got better every year, but now it's my time to help others. And
before you got on, Dusty, we were talking about when Jamie got traded from Powell River to Toronto in the OJ, and Jonah replaced them. And Jonah came in and just torched the league and made it look like the best trade that Powell River ever made.
It's crazy. There's in that short little stint, there's some good goalies that went through there, man.
There that year, you and Sean McGuire both drafted in the same draft from the same team, basically.
Before that was Gartag, and then after Kona, and there's some good goalies.
Yeah, Powell River is a goalie hotspot, I guess, but those are wild times. What's Jonah up to these days?
He's a full-time painter with my daughter's husband's company, housing and whatnot, and he's actually been doing it for quite a while. Even when he was playing, he'd do it in the summers, but now full-time. And he's still doing shoes. Tougher for him now. Works more full-time, but branch out to doing other things like belts and wallets. He's just sick at it. The work crazy.
He has no desire to do masks?
Well, see, he's never jumped into the airbrushing, so he does everything by hand, right? But that would be so cool. He's unbelievable. Actually making some sick masks for sure.
Seen the shoes that he was making were unbelievable. Yeah, they were dynamite.
Oh, crazy. Well, here actually.
And he did that all by hand. I thought that was airbrushed.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty badass.
Wow, yeah.
Keep right next to that mask too. It's pretty sick.
All right, Dusty. Thanks a lot for coming on. We've been rambling for a while. So where can people find you on social media, your TikTok, Instagram?
You know what? I just did an interview 2 days ago, and I didn't even remember my handles. I think Twitter is 70, and I think the other ones, Insta and TikTok, I think they're just Dusty Imoo.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming on and giving us the time. And it was a very insightful interview, and I think our listeners are definitely going to enjoy it because I really enjoyed our talk we had today.
Oh, no, as soon as Jamie DM'd me, I was like, oh, totally. I'd do it for you guys.
And in a couple months, you're going to have – will this be your first Vezina? Because I'm still saying Hellie's winning it.
Yeah, that's kind of a mind-blowing when you think about it. That's a tough award to win, man.
It's not easy. I got 0.